Hello there, and welcome to this special Foster Care Institute training webinar. This webinar is for foster care agencies, foster parent recruitment, creating a strong recruitment program for strong families. This introduction webinar is the first in a series of webinars designed for foster care agencies to create strong recruitment programs to recruit foster families, foster parents, for a growing number of children being placed in foster care. Hello there, I'm your host, Dr. John DeGarmo, the founder and director of the Foster Care Institute, and I'm so glad your agency is taking part in this series of webinars. If you know a little bit about my own family, then you know that I've been a foster parent to over 60 children who have been placed in my home, placed with my family. Indeed, if you know part of my story, you know we've had over 11 children at the same time placed in our home. 11 children at one time placed in our home. And if you're a foster care agency, you ask yourself this: how can this be? How can they have so many children placed in the same home? Well, the truth is quite simple, and perhaps you recognize it. Not enough homes. Growing number of children being placed in foster care, yet not enough families. My wife and I have signed waiver after waiver after waiver to have a very large number of children placed in our home. Indeed, we've had up to 7 babies at the same time in our home as well. Yes, exhausting. Yes, it leads to burnout. And yes, it's how you lose foster parents. For so many years, indeed up to 5 years in a row, my wife and I averaged 9 kids in our home. Perhaps you've read stories, maybe it's even your own agency, those stories of children in foster care sleeping in offices on cots because there are not enough homes in that area for a child to be placed in. Our goal during this webinar is to increase the awareness of the realities of challenges that foster parents face and how it impacts recruiting. Indeed, for us to truly create a strong recruitment program, we first have to understand the challenges, the stresses that go along with foster parents, with foster parenting, the stresses that foster parents face, the struggles and challenges they face on a day-to-day basis. Because if we do not understand that, if we do not truly appreciate these challenges, then we can't create a strong program for these foster parents. We can't create a strong recruitment program and at the same time retain those foster parents. Indeed, I strongly believe that recruitment and retention go hand in hand. Because if you spend a great amount of time, energy, money recruiting foster parents, yet your retention rate is so very, very low, as is halfway across the nation of ours, then your recruitment efforts are in vain. Now, the media continues to report on the shortage of foster parents and foster homes in this nation. And this can be attributed indeed to the increase of children being placed in foster care. We hear over and over again about the numbers of children being placed in foster care across the country, yet not enough foster homes. In the states of Georgia and Tennessee, child welfare workers are fighting to find homes for the increasing number of children in foster care. State of Texas, the lack of foster parents resulted in some children from sleeping in child welfare offices. Indiana, where the number of children being placed in foster care has reached an all-time high. Yet the state is scrambling to find more foster homes for the increased number of children needing a home. California faces the same challenge as a shortage of foster parents has grown to record numbers. North Carolina faces their own state of crisis. It's happening all across the nation. Now, in some parts of the nation, there's been a sudden large increase due to the opioid epidemic, such as heroin and other drugs, substance abuse, strangling these families. What happens? What happens to a child when a parent is arrested and incarcerated for opiates? What happens to a child when parents are hospitalized due to opioid addiction? What happens to these children when their parents even die from opiate addiction? These children are flooding into a foster care system that simply cannot handle it. Other substance abuse among parents include meth, cocaine, prescription medication abuse. You know about this, you've read about this, and perhaps you've dealt with it yourself as an agency. Now, other parts of our nation face the challenge of both recruiting foster parents and retention or keeping strong foster parents. We just mentioned this a few moments ago. Indeed, the turnover rate of foster parent ranges from 30 to 50%. This means 30 to 50% of foster parents make the decision to no longer be a foster parent home for children in need. Indeed, after 18 months, after 18 months of opening up their home as a foster parent, so many of these foster parents are saying, I'm through, I'm done, I'm no longer doing it, close our home. As a result, with the increase of children in foster care paired with the decrease in number of foster parents, the end result is simply this. There are not enough homes for these children to be placed in. Or a child is moved from one home to another, and to another, and to another, and so on and so forth, which is known as multiple displacement. Kim Hansel, the editor of Fostering Families Today, said this: recruiting foster parents has become more and more challenging over the years. Today, it's so much more than taking a child into your home and providing food, shelter, and love. There are hefty requirements from foster parents, from ongoing training to doctors and court and parental visitation appointments, in addition to the day-to-day demands of caring for the child. Kim also goes on to say, in today's world, foster parents need to know so much more about the child development and the impact of trauma on the child's brain development. Finally, Kim Hansel continues by saying, foster parents also need to understand that the first goal of foster care is to work towards reunification of a child with his or her parents and to help support that. It is not an easy job and requires lots of time and energy and understanding of not only the needs of the child, but of the demands of the foster care system as well. Again, this is from Kim Hansel, the editor of Fostering Families Today. So what does that mean? It means this: we need more foster parents. Your agency needs more foster parents. The children in your area need more foster parents. Your community needs more foster parents. Your state needs more foster parents. Our nation needs more foster parents. For many years, there's been a decrease in the number of children being placed in the foster care system in the United States. Yet for the past 3 years, there has been just the opposite. There has been a national increase in the number of children being placed into foster care. The number of children placed into care peaked in the year 2002, with roughly 524,000 children reported placed into foster care. Now, this was according to a study by the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System, the AFCARS. The number of children placed in foster care fell to a low in 2012 of 397,000, yet rose again to 428,000 in 2015. Now, during this time, roughly 3/4 of the United States reported increases of children placed in foster care between the years of 2014 and 2015. The largest number of children being placed in foster care nationwide is due yet again to the parental drug usage and substance abuse. 5 states in particular stood out with the largest increases between 2013 and 2015. These states included Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, and Minnesota, with those states accounting for 65% of the nationwide increase. Georgia had the largest increase during this time and saw their number of children from 7,600 in September 2013 to over 15,000 in 2018. That's double the numbers. Shocking. Indiana had the second largest increase, with their numbers increasing by 37%. Minnesota saw an increase from 33%. Florida saw an increase of children being placed in their care, 24%. Finally, Arizona saw their numbers jump from 17,592 children to 18,657 children during that same time period. Now, let's look at the average ages of children being placed in foster care. The average age, those children who are newborns to 1 year old make up 4.1%. Those children between 1 to 5 years of age, 27.4%. Those children 6 to 10 years of age make up 16.1%. Those children 11 to 15 years of age, 23.5%. Those children 16 to 18 years of age, 28.5%. And finally, those children 19 years of age and older, 0.4%. So if you look at that statistic there, you'll see the vast majority, indeed over 50% of the children, are children school age. Those children and youth who are in school are in foster care. If you wish to look at the ethnicity, those who are considered black are 15%. Those considered white are 70.1%. Those considered American Indian, 2.2%. Those considered Asian, 1.3%. Those considered Hispanic, 7.9%. Those unknown, 9.2%. And the average length of stay in foster care for a child, the average length nationwide, is 18.5 months. Now, we all know this to be true. Some children will stay much shorter time in foster care. Some will stay a much longer time. Indeed, sadly, many children will spend their entire childhood in foster care. Yet the national average length of stay is roughly a year and a half. For those children who enter foster care, 40% are reunification within the first 12 months. You know, foster care agencies are really struggling with the issues of retention. Why is it that foster parent retention is so very low across our nation? Is it because it's a difficult job? I'm here to tell you, as a foster parent myself, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. The most rewarding thing I've ever done, to be sure, but it is the most challenging job I've ever had. Is foster parent retention so low because the financial strains on a family? Society will tell you that that foster parents are in it for the money, yet we both know that's not to be the case. Foster parents are indeed reimbursed for much of the cost of the child, in the home, but many foster parents, like myself, will state that they spend some of their own expenses when a child comes into their home out of their own income. Is foster parent retention so low due to the feelings of grief and loss when a child leaves their home? For so many foster parents, these feelings of grief and loss are so real, as a child that comes into their home becomes a loved member of their family. As I travel the nation and globe working with foster parents, training foster parents, I hear over and over again that the biggest issue foster parents face is the feelings of grief and loss when a child leaves. That's what hurts them the most, they tell me. Is the retention rate so low due to the fact that they don't have the consistency with the child's caseworker? According to one study by Flower, McDonald, Somiski, up to 40% of child welfare caseworkers leave their jobs every year, while 90% of agencies indicate they have difficulty in both hiring and retaining staff. Is the fact that foster parent retention rate is so low? Perhaps it's due to the lack of understanding from friends and family members of foster parents. No one truly understands a foster parent like another foster parent, not even their friends and their family members. As a result, foster parents truly do not get the support that they need unless they're getting it from other foster parents. Yet those foster parents are also feeling their own burnout, their own stress, their own grief, their own loss, their own challenges. Maybe foster parent retention is so low based upon the stress that it can place on a marriage. I've worked with many foster parents whose marriages are challenged. When you're bringing in children who are suffering from trauma and anxiety into a family, everything is affected, including a marriage, and it places strain upon marriages. Indeed, one of the most popular webinars I'm conducting across the nation at this time is that of this: marriage and foster parenting, making it work. Foster parents are wanting to learn now how to help their marriage and strengthen their marriage as they both care for children in crisis in their own homes. Perhaps foster parent retention rate is so low due to the foster parents not having the appropriate resources to properly care for the children placed in their home, or being unable to manage their challenging behaviors attributed to the child. Maybe, just maybe, foster parent retention rate is so low because it's a combination of many of these issues, or perhaps all of these issues. Make no mistake, a large number of foster parents every single year in your area and across the nation experience difficulties whereupon they make this decision. They no longer can foster a child in need in their own home. A recent study here at the Foster Care Institute found that foster parent retention suffers from several different factors. We here at the Foster Care Institute surveyed over 5,000 foster parents. To begin with, the majority of the foster parents in this survey who took part in this nationwide and global survey indicated this: they currently were or are suffering in the past from feelings of grief and loss. Of this number, half of these foster parents expressed they did not feel supported by their caseworker or agency during this time of grief and loss. Only 36% of over 5,000 foster parents felt they did find the support they needed. Now, I tell foster parents this: caseworkers today are overworked, overwhelmed, under-resourced, and underpaid. Or am I wrong? Caseworkers today are overworked, overwhelmed, under-resourced, and underpaid. So many caseworkers are trying to keep their heads above water. Yet foster parents don't appreciate this, recognize this, or understand this, and they are looking for your support. And when they don't feel they're getting it, so many of them quit. A minority of foster parents in this survey stated that they felt they were included in the decision making of the child placed in their home. A percentage of foster parents felt they did not receive the training they needed each year to be an effective foster parent. You see, foster parenting is hard. Grief and loss is so very, very real for today's foster parents. We cannot take that lightly. Going forward, training and resources for foster parent burnout and grief were also lacking, they felt, as only 33% of these foster parents surveyed at the Foster Care Institute felt they had adequate training in this regard. In addition, more than half of those surveyed felt that they wanted to quit being a foster parent at some point. Only 19% stated that they felt like quitting more than once. In addition, in this survey, this study found that many foster parents felt they did not have the necessary and honest information by their caseworkers needed to properly care for the child placed in their home. Many foster parents stated this: the lack of consistency with the same caseworker also was a problem for foster parents surveyed. Along with this information, many foster parents indicated they did not feel appreciated or respected by their caseworkers. The lack of respite care from foster parents, or a time off, if you will, was also seen as a concern by many of these foster parents. Now, there are so many stresses for today's foster parents. It's important that we recognize what these stresses are before we can go forth in creating a strong recruitment program. So let's look at those stresses. Foster parenting is never a job that you can get used to, if you will. Every child that comes into a home, every child that's placed into a home, comes with a set of new challenges, new struggles, different anxieties and traumas, because every child is unique. Every child is different. Every child is special. So it's impossible to get used to the job. Foster parents struggle with issues of money. They struggle with issues of work. Because if they're like myself as a foster parent, so many times I'm getting phone calls from a school or a daycare or some type of environment while I'm at work. Somebody telling me this: your child in foster care is sick. They have lice. They're acting out. They bit somebody. They hit somebody. They're in trouble at school. And I, as a foster parent, have to leave my work to go pick up that child and take that child home. Or they come to my home and they're already ill or sick and I've got to stay home from work. Many foster parents struggle with work, missing work due to the children placed in their home. When a child is placed into a foster care family, that family is going to have unique challenges that most will never have. And those friends and family members don't understand or appreciate. There are going to be different dynamics in that home every time a child's placed in that home. So it affects all in the family. For a foster parent, their own health could be affected. Because again, a child is being placed into their home who may not be up with their medical shots. They may be sick, they may be unhealthy, they may carry lice or scabies or something like that. And then there are those life issues that hit each of us. When you have a child placed in your home who's suffering from trauma and anxieties, it makes it all the more stressful. Other stressors include this. So many children in foster care come with learning disorders and behavioral issues, health issues, and emotional issues. And that is stressful. That is stressful for foster parents. Helping these children who have these learning disorders, helping these children who are struggling with behavioral issues, helping these children who have issues of health, helping these children who are being surrounded constantly by emotional issues they simply cannot comprehend or process. Children in foster care perform lower in academics and have more behavior problems. Indeed, children in foster care are, on average, a year and a half behind academically and struggle with issues of reading and math. And as a foster parent, it is challenging and stressful trying to help these children in school. And so many children in foster care have issues of behavior while in school. Indeed, this is a tremendous issue because over 55% of children in foster care will drop out of school when they age out. There are those placement disruptions that are stressful for foster families. When a child is just placed into a home, from one home to the next, their emotional, psychological, and social effects. Their mental health is threatened by multiple displacements. Every time they move from one home to the next, their mental health is threatened, and that is stressful and challenging for the foster family. Again, their academic performances are lower than the traditional students. Children in foster care have language development delays often. Again, math or reading skills are weak. High levels of misbehavior. Dropout rate is high. And of course, these are all affect children in foster care and youth in foster care when they drop out of school and they age out of the system. This is stressful for foster parents. Many times, children in foster care struggle with issues on social networking. Indeed, this might be the most relevant issue facing foster parents today: online technology and social networking. For you see, sometimes children in foster care have access to their birth parents, the biological family members, and have contact that is not monitored by the foster parents or by caseworkers. And as a result, children in foster care could have false promises made to them by their birth parents online. False accusations could be made against the foster parents from birth parents online. Youth in foster care might have a meeting arranged to meet with their birth parents through online means with nobody having any access to this or information to this or knowledge of this. Foster children have access to inappropriate materials on their birth parents' pages online. It is difficult for foster parents and caseworkers to monitor, as the birth parents can contact the child through it and communication is not monitored. And then there is the whole human trafficking aspect of children in foster care that is stressful for foster parents and caseworkers, and much of this happens through online means. Indeed, we have several webinars based on this at the Foster Care Institute, and I would encourage your agency to pick up the book Keeping Foster Children Safe Online, because this, again, is perhaps the most relevant issue facing foster care today. Foster parents often feel stressed with working with you, the caseworkers, and the courts. This can be stressful for foster parents. The paperwork can be awfully daunting for foster parents as well, as they care for children placed in their home with trauma and anxieties, as they have to deal with visitations and doctor's appointments, and they have to deal with therapy meetings and school appointments, and they're dealing with children who are suffering from reactive attachment disorder or anger management issues or sleeping anxieties or eating disorders, and then on top of this they have to do paperwork. They don't have time for this. As we noted earlier, some foster parents struggle with their marriages while foster parenting, and resentment can build on a number of areas and in a number of ways. I would encourage you to check out the webinar on marriage and foster parenting, making it work, here at the Foster Care Institute, and also read the chapter about marriage and foster parenting in the book, The Foster Care Survival Guide, because foster parents are struggling with this issue as well. So many foster parents say this. They don't have time for themselves. They simply do not have time for themselves. They're giving all of themselves to the children who are placed in their home, those children who are suffering from anxieties, who are demanding attention from these foster parents. And foster parents do not have time for themselves. Thus, burnout happens. Working with birth parents can be awfully stressful for foster parents. They feel stressed. They feel a lack of control. They may feel threatened. They feel anxiety sometimes working with birth parents. A recent study of 376 foster parents found that 19% of foster parents felt adequately prepared for the departure of the child. 36% felt they were taught the skills to cope with the child's removal. Foster parents struggle when a child is removed from their home because they feel as if they've lost their own child. You see, there are those obstacles to healthy resolution of grief. As we noted here earlier in this webinar, and as you can see all throughout the Foster Care Institute, foster parents really struggle with issues of grief and loss when a child is removed from their home. And there are those barriers in our society and in our personalities that prevent one from fully expressing the grief. When foster parents cannot express the grief of losing a child moving from their home, they burn out, they lose their own identity, they swallow in grief, and they fall into depression, and they no longer foster. There are those demanding roles that foster parents face of other children, both their foster and biological children, taking time away from their own grieving. There's demands of everyday life, work, family, childcare, laundry, whatever it may be, that take time away from foster parents grieving when a child is removed from home. Again, you can find an entire chapter on this in the book, The Foster Care Survival Guide, and I encourage you to read that to better understand your foster parents. And finally, foster parents suffer so many times with secondary traumatic stress. Secondary traumatic stress. Dr. Charles Fickley calls it this: the natural consequent behaviors resulting from knowledge about a traumatizing event experienced by a significant other. It is the stress resulting from helping or wanting to help a traumatized or suffering person. Secondary traumatic stress is very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. The difference, though, is the experience. And we have a webinar here all about secondary traumatic stress. And I want to encourage you to watch it so you can better understand your foster parents and perhaps better understand yourself. Because caseworkers often suffer from secondary traumatic stress as well. And that is why agencies may be losing their caseworkers as well. Because again, caseworkers suffer from secondary traumatic stress. Fascinating, fascinating webinar, and I encourage you to watch it. If we cannot keep our foster parents healthy, happy, if we cannot keep them fresh and give them the support they need, if we cannot surround foster parents with the resources and the training and the care they need and they crave, we will lose more foster parents. As we go forth in these series of webinars on how to recruit foster parents, we have to keep in mind throughout all of these webinars that we have to not only recruit them, but the struggles that these new foster parents will face. And we have to focus also on helping them. We have to help our new foster parents that we recruit. We have to support them. We have to give them the resources and training. We have to give them the care that they need. Otherwise, our efforts in recruitment will be wasted. I'm so excited to begin this series of training webinars, special series, all revolving around recruitment of new foster parents. So excited you're on this journey. We're going to learn a lot through the next 9 webinars. You can find so much more at the Foster Care Institute. The website is there. You can find more each day at my Facebook page and my Twitter. And of course, email me if you have any questions. I talked briefly about this book, The Foster Care Survival Guide, The Essential Guide for Today's Foster Parents. It is a book that you need to read to better understand today's foster parents. And there's so many other books as well at the Foster Care Institute. Thank you so much for being part of this webinar. Thank you for all that you do with your agency. Your job is a challenging one. So many days, foster parents are mad with you. The birth parents are mad with you. The children might be mad with you. The court system might be mad at you. Your own family might be upset with you because they're not getting enough time from you because you are spending so much of your own time helping children in crisis. And for that, I thank you. Thank you for helping children in crisis. For the Foster Care Institute and for the special webinar series, I'm Dr. John DeGarmo.